All right, folks, thanks for coming. We're going to be talking about large companies, companies with high hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of employees, and the unique challenges that they face as they adopt the principles of inbound marketing. So just a quick feel for the audience. How many folks have under 1,000 employees at the companies they're at? Okay. How about 1,000 to 10,000? Over 10,000? Okay, good. We got a nice little mix. So I actually probably been involved in about 80 such companies in the last year in their adoption of inbound marketing. And what's funny is all these companies feel like they have unique challenges that are brought on by the way they're structured, their politics, their views on marketing, who they sell to. But I'm really surprised to find that most of them actually have the same patterns and challenges. So that's really what we're going to talk about today. The first place that we typically start, and by the way, it's at Mark Roberge if you're tweeting, and the inbound12 hashtag. Where we typically start is take an assessment on the full inbound marketing funnel. And we can start in any number of ways when someone is going down the inbound marketing journey. Some people like to start at the top if they don't have much traction going on with visitors and start generating a lot of content, getting a lot of visitors. Other folks may be getting lots of visitors and need to work on their conversions. They don't have a good conversion rate to lead. And other folks need to take those leads and warm them up a bit before they pass them to their sales team. And the first pattern that I see that I think is a big issue in the larger company arena is this obsession over marketing automation, right? So workflow, lead nurturing, market automation, someone will join like, I'm very excited to get started. Where do you want to start? I want to start with nurturing my leads. Okay, that might be the right place to start. First question, how big is your database? 50,000. Wow, that's great. Second question, how long did it take you to build that database? 10 years. That's concerning. Okay. Third question, have you cleansed it? How have you cleansed it over those years? We haven't cleansed it at all. Very, very concerning response. Okay? So at that point, I'm really questioning why are we starting with lead nurturing? And one of the items that very few people understand is this concept of a database half-life. And the statistics will show that if you start this year with 50,000 opted-in fresh leads, 1 year later, at least a quarter of them will be irrelevant. Right? They'll be irrelevant because those people change jobs, the company changes strategies, people's roles change, and they're really not going to apply to the messaging that you have. The second thing a lot of people don't understand, and this is done by the great work of, if everyone went to Dan Zarella's speech yesterday, our social media scientist, Dan had studied approximately 50,000 leads and their response and engagement with our email campaigns. And what you see here is on the x-axis, you see the time from which that lead originally converted on one of our forms. And on the y-axis, you see the click-through rate. So on average, the day that a lead actually converts, if you were to send them an email that day, they'll have a click-through rate of about 5.5%. Just 90 days later, on average, they will have a click-through rate of 2.2%, more than half. And it makes sense. I mean, when I download something today, I'm obviously thinking about it, I'm interested. 3 months later, I have no idea what I was interested in 3 months ago, right? So it makes a ton of sense. So those two factors, in terms of the half-life and the expiration, causes this dying asset. And if my strategy is to take this old database in Salesforce.com or wherever it is, as large as it is, and to spend all my time doing lead nurturing against it, I'm essentially, my whole strategy hinges on a dying marketing asset, right? The other issue along those lines is it's all hinges on email. That's just one way to get in touch with someone. And I don't know about you, but I stopped reading unsolicited email years ago. Like 90% of it doesn't even get to me. It gets caught in my spam blocker. So the combination of not refreshing my database with at least a third of fresh emails every single year and having a multi-medium channel is really the direction that we need. and a prerequisite to successful market automation. Okay? So how do we do that? Hopefully we've gotten that after the last day or so of the conference. Inbound is the best way to do it, and the best way to do that is through constant content creation and participation in social media. And what that's going to do is it's going to engage our content in the social media communities and conversations where our target prospects are actually hanging out, draw them to our site, and it's going to also influence our Google ranks and draw a lot of people with targeted keyword searches to our site. That's going to create an influx of inbound leads and make my lead nurturing that much more effective. Okay. Here's an example of a company, maybe you've heard of Yo, large company that was very successful in implementing a strategy like this. There's a big case study. It's pages long with a lot of analytics that you can check out on our website to give you a sense of what kind of results you can get from this. These guys, I think they do $500 million a year in revenue, and they have 4,000 employees. So it wasn't an easy feat. But once they adopted these principles, you can see the amazing results: 4.7 times the leads from organic, 2.09 times the leads from direct. Okay? So the next logical question is, I get it. I was going to be very aggressive about a marketing automation and lead nurturing program in starting my inbound marketing journey, but I am not refreshing my database by 33% every single year. And I do not have a multi-medium channel. So now I need to rethink this. And it sounds like what I need to do is start creating content and start creating a lot of fresh leads before I do nurturing. And I'm going to talk about the challenges with that, because that is not easy to pull off in a big organization. I'll have questions at the end. I would love it if someone asked one now. I'll take one now if anyone has it on that first point. Any brave souls? Question on that point? A lot of shy people. All right. Think of your questions. All right. So how can I create content? And what kind of challenges am I going to face as a big company? The first challenge we see is, what do I mean by good content? Okay? This is good news for me. I'm an enterprise customer. I create content all the time. I have a whole team that creates content for me. Oh yeah, what kind of content do you create? They write product brochures in our PDFs, and they write product web pages for our website. It's not going to cut it. That's content from 10 years ago. That's someone that's very deep in their buying process. They don't care about your product if they're early in the process. And those are the folks that we have to go after. So we have to reframe our thinking on what we mean by good content. And good content needs to be about the questions that they have when they're starting their pursuit, the problems they're trying to solve, not the solutions and products that you have. And I'll give you a couple examples. Here's Tufts Medical, nationwide, enormous medical plan. It's a customer of HubSpot. You can see a great example here: understanding Medicare enrollment periods and avoiding late enrollment penalties. This has nothing to do with their medical plan. It's just advice for people who are going through this journey. This could be someone that's reevaluating their medical plan, and they have questions on it. This could be an HR department that needs to start a new medical plan. They are likely to find this article, and that's a good prospect for Tufts. Another one is Thermo Scientific. Great job. They do $12 billion a year in revenue and have 40,000 employees. Not an easy feat to pull off. This is from their chromatography division, and unfortunately, I only understand half the words in this blog article, which I think is a good thing for the blog article. It says HPLC assay of Gentim. Can you guys help me with this? I'm not even going to read it. But it's really awesome for the prospects that they're actually going after. It has nothing to do with their products. It has to do with industry trends that are actually happening and hot topics that these scientists are searching on. The perfect person to find Thermo Scientific. So the first movement we need to make is redefine what we think about content. It's not about product content. It's about the pains and the opportunities that people have at the top of the funnel. Okay? The next question is, how do we actually do this? Right? Because I'm a marketer at a big company. I am not a scientist. I couldn't have written this blog article. The people that could have written this blog article are the scientists. They're the C-level executives. And I'm sure that's the case in your groups as well. You may know something about your industry, You may be the marketing executive. You don't have time to write a blog article. And if we look around the company, there might be 30, 40, 50 people that have the thought leadership, that have the knowledge to be able to write this blog article, but they typically are very busy. There are engineers. There are salespeople. There are C-level executives. So if you think now that your strategy is, okay, Mark, I get it. I need to get thought leaders to write blog articles. If your strategy is to go down and pound on your CEO's door and get them to write a blog article a week or a month, it's just not going to happen. I've never seen it happen in an enterprise account. So what are we going to do about that? We have to create a good content engine strategy. A good content engine strategy has 3 components. The first component is thought leadership. The second component is good writing skills, interesting writing skills. And the third component is time. It's going to take time to do this. Those 3 components do not exist in any one person at a large account. Okay? The thought leadership exists in your C-level suite, your engineers, your salespeople, et cetera. The time and writing ability probably exists in another person or another team. It could be a marketing associate that has a journalist degree, preferably, maybe an English degree. It could be someone that you could go out and hire. I will tell you that within 10 miles of here, there are 22-year-old graduates from Harvard, from Babson, from Wellesley, from BC, from BU, who study journalism that don't have a job and would love to work for you for $30,000 a year and could crush this opportunity for you. So in the same way that you went out and created content generation teams for your product, I encourage you to find those resources internally or create those resources. We're talking about a journalist that can interview your thought leaders. And once I identify that person, let's put together a process. So what would a process look like? Now, rather than going to your CEO, rather than going to your engineers, rather than going to your sales team and asking for a blog article a week or a blog article a month, now I want to ask them to show up to an 8:30 phone call or an 8:30 cup of coffee with Mike, our new 22-year-old Harvard grad who came from the journalism program. And Mike is going to ask you a couple questions about a very specific topic in your industry. And it's going to be very, very easy for your CEO, your engineer, your salesperson to elaborate on that topic. And now what Mike is going to do is he's going to write a great ebook. He's going to write a 3 or 4 page ebook, basically extracting all those great thought leadership items from the brain of your thought leader. Okay? 15 minutes of time of that CEO. And based on that ebook, not using any additional time, he's going to write 4 blog articles. Okay? He's going to post that ebook on a landing page. And at the end of that landing page, he's going to have a call to action to the ebook. Now we just need to get people to find that landing page. Let's produce the 4 blog articles. Let's write those 4 blog articles. They're 2 or 3 paragraphs long. They have to do with niche subjects within the ebook. And at the end of each blog article, there's a call to action to guess where? The landing page, where the ebook is. And if they want that ebook, all I need is your name, your phone number, your title, and your email address. And that's a hot lead. Okay? Now we need to get people to those blog articles. So what does Mike do? He does a bunch of social media promotion. Over the next few weeks, he promotes different messages describing what's in that blog article at different times, okay? To Facebook to Twitter. Now we've got a really nice content engine that's building. I've got a bunch of tweets, a bunch of Facebook posts that are going out to communities and eyeballs of potential target customers. And they're intrigued by those tweets. And they're reading that blog post. And they're intrigued. And they're clicking on that call to action. And they're looking at the landing page, and they're intrigued. And they're filling out your form, and they're writing the ebook. 15 minutes of your CEO's time. Okay? If I can repeat that across my entire thought leadership committee, now I've got an amazing content engine. Every week, I can sit down with 2 or 3 of them. And I don't need to talk to my CEO for another couple months, because I've got so many people in that thought leadership committee. All right. So now we've got the workings of a bunch of inbound leads, fresh leads. And the reason why we have it is we have a bunch of content that's going out and some level of participation in social media. I'm getting nearer to having a successful lead nurture and market automation approach. One thing that would make that strategy really great is to have a big social media following. Okay, so there's a couple things that I want to do. Number one, social media is not a one-way communication. Okay? If we restrict this to just the tweets about my CEO's content, I'm going to be a little bit egotistical out there on social media. In addition to posting up that content, I want Mike, my marketing associate, to find other conversations, other questions that people are having about my industry. And it can be pretty broad. And bring those to my attention so we can participate and add value to that conversation. So maybe a third of the time we're talking about us in our blog posts, and maybe 2/3 of the time we're giving back to the conversation and the community. The other thing that I want to do is I want to be extra attentive to my social media influencers. Okay? And lots of times, these people are not even potential customers. They might be journalists in your space. They'll never sign up and buy your product. However, they do tend to have pretty big social media followings. 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 followers. And guess who's following them? Your prospects, right? So we need to identify those people and engage in them in a very different way, right? We don't want to put them to the wayside. So some of the great stuff we saw from Brian and Dharmesh, there's a great way to do that within HubSpot in our contact and list creation tool. So when you import a list into HubSpot, HubSpot will go out and figure out if they have a social media profile, if they have a Twitter account. And if they do, they will append it to that lead record. So now I can go into my list segmentation, and I can segment it by all the people who have a Twitter profile, all the people who have more than 2,500 followers, all the people that have clicked on one of my tweets in the last, at least once, in the last 2 months. That's a great representation of the engaged social media influencers with my product and my brand. And I want to treat them in a different way with specific content they can share easily. Right? The combination, if there's, of the 50,000 of these databases you've got, if there's even 100 of those folks, and they have on average 1,000 followers, that's a reach of 100,000. That's more than your 50,000 database sitting right there through the influence of their peers. So please take advantage of those influencers and build up your social media following. There's actually a really good company that did that is Heritage Environmental Services. They do about $150 million a year. They've got about 1,200 employees that are up in Wisconsin in waste management. And they really did a good job implementing a full inbound marketing program. They're another case study on our site that you could go. Great analytics, help you understand what happened. And you can see the increase in social media just in those 6 months, a nice increase of 135% in following these practices. HubSpot's a great example too. I am very fortunate to be in sales for a marketing team like HubSpot. And you can look at the numbers that they've put up, the growth that they've put up just in the last 9 months. 184,000 followers on Twitter, 130,000 likes on Facebook using these principles. Okay. One of the other components you have to pay attention to in successful social media participation is where are your prospects, most qualified prospects, actually conversing? And I don't know the answer to that. But I know the way to get the answer, and that is through closed-loop analytics. So you want to make sure that you have the foundation in place to look at all the traffic coming from social media and understand how many visits you're getting each month, how many of those are converting into leads, and how many of those are converting into customers. And be able to segment that by community. Right? And this is going to give you some guidance as to where the most qualified folks are actually conversing, so you can redirect Mike's time to go to those communities and spend more time there. The other thing that's a little bit off topic, but like such an important contributor here, is when we're seeking out the ROI of social media, we shouldn't restrict ourselves to simply that funnel shape of how many leads and how many customers I got from my efforts in social media. First off, it's building up our following, and we just discussed the importance of social media influencers. The other big thing that a lot of people don't realize is how much of an impact social media authority has today on your rankings in Google. All right? I think a lot of people in the room probably know that for the last decade, the biggest influencer of your rankings in Google has always been the number of inbound links that you get. If you get a lot more inbound links, Google thinks you're important. They are changing that algorithm if you keep up with the engineers from Google. And there's been a lot of statistical studies on this particular topic. What this shows is there's a bunch of attributes here listed. Things from the number of inbound links you have, to the number of Facebook fans that you have, to how you've laid out your page titles, et cetera. The items listed in blue describe things about your on-page SEO, your headers, your page titles, et cetera. The items listed in green, I'm sorry, the green is the on-page SEO. The blue is your inbound links. And the orange are actually things related to your social media authority. And in the last year, year and a half, we've seen a significant increase in correlation between your social media authority and your success in Google. So over time, if you are not paying attention to social media, if you are not building up your following, you are going to lose the Google game as well. Right? And that needs to be factored into your ROI efforts. Okay. All right, now we've got a great social media following. I've got a new distribution vehicle. I'm creating content that I can get out to them. I'm attracting them to my blog. I'm getting the click-through on my call to action. I'm getting new leads. I'm almost ready for some lead nurturing. Any brave souls with a question yet? Okay. All right. Now, the last thing that I want to do is pay attention to the aggregation of this data and metrics. And I want to use that to create a personalized experience. You heard Brian's amazing speech today about his obsession with Amazon, how good of a job they do with personalization. How can we as marketers replicate that experience in our own sites? And so what I want to do is bring together this data and have a 360 view of each lead in my database. All right? That will allow us to get away from the whole hate marketers attitude to the whole make marketing that people love, that we're striving to achieve. And our leads, 10, 15 years ago, the sales process started with a salesperson. It was a call, it was a conversation. Today, when you actually talk to a salesperson, usually you're on step number 4 of maybe 7 of a buying process. And yet so many salespeople don't leverage that, don't take advantage of that. And so many marketers don't leverage that when they're going back to their database. Right? So the first very specific example I'll give you is related to the smart CTAs that Dharmesh talked about this morning. Let's take a situation where I've been following your brand and your company for a while. I've been evaluating your space. I've spent 3 weeks with your sales team. I've come to your website 7 times. I've read 15 blog articles. I've looked at your pricing page. I've read 2 case studies. And today I come to your homepage and it looks exactly the same as it did the first time I visited it. There's a big, beautiful call to action that's giving me some basic introductory ebook, and that is very inappropriate. Right? What I should have at that point is the opportunity to do a free trial, the opportunity to review another case study, the opportunity to look at an ROI report. That's where I am at in my evaluation of your business. Take another example. This gentleman just visited your site for the first time. If you're showing him a demo request and an ROI report, that's too pushy. He needs to be educated first. So that homepage call to action needs to take into account the stage that your lead is in, the interest that they've already conveyed to you, and be dynamic along those elements. Okay, that's true personalization through integration. The other thing that happens is I've been on your site for 5 visits. I've looked at 20 pages. I've read a couple blog articles. And I've downloaded a bunch of things. Maybe I've gotten some emails from you, some of which I clicked in and opened up. And yet your salesperson calls me up and gives me a very generic elevator pitch. Hi, hi, John. This is Mark from HubSpot. We help companies like you generate more leads and customers through your website. Haven't you been paying attention to what I've been telling you? I've been on your website. I was very clear that this is what I'm interested in, as opposed to if you've gotten called by a HubSpot salesperson or some of the salespeople that have made this adoption. It might look like, hey, John, this is Mark from HubSpot. I noticed that you attended our webinar on Facebook marketing yesterday. What specific questions did you have? Very different opening, right? Now, a lot of people won't take the bait on that. A lot of people, well, you know, I just wanted to find out about Facebook marketing. I didn't know I was going to get a call from a salesperson. That's okay. I actually spent 10 minutes on your Facebook profile last night, and I had a couple quick tips. Would you be interested? Pretty much everyone takes the bait on that. And then, when the tips are actually really good, and you learn something, now we're engaged. Now you're asking me questions. And now I'm no longer a salesperson and a prospect. I'm a doctor, and you're a patient. And that's where we need to get to. But in order to do so, we have to leverage all the information that they give us along the way. So that includes the information they've put into forms. It includes the pages that they've looked at. It includes the emails they've received and which ones they opened. Okay? And it also includes their social media information. Are they engaged in social media? Because I can use this first off as a trigger event. I'd like to see what you're posting lately, and I may reference that in an email and a phone call to show you that I'm paying attention. I may also try to follow you and message you. I mean, if I want to leave 6 voicemails for you in the next 2 months, maybe I'll try you a ping on LinkedIn or Twitter as well, right? But only if you're active, right? So I need to appreciate that. Okay. The other thing is we need to, especially in enterprise, especially in larger companies, we need to get this information into the existing process of our sales team, not expect them to adapt their process, right? So if their process is that they go into their CRM and they pull up a lead in Salesforce or whatever we might be using, we need to make sure we get this information where they're looking today. If we do that, they will like it. Okay? We also need to make sure that bells and alarms go off when very important lead activity occurs. If a VP from a prospect in your database comes to your website and requests a demo, they need to be called in 5 minutes because they probably requested a demo from your competitor as well. And if they call them in 5 minutes and you wait a day, your likelihood of losing that deal goes up 1,000 times. MIT data will show you, right? So bells and whistles need to go off however you do it. I prefer an email that goes directly to that salesperson within minutes of that conversion, whoever it's assigned to in the CRM system. This is a personalized experience. Okay? All right. How about measurement? We're almost ready for lead nurturing. The only question I have is, which leads should I nurture? Like, which leads go right to the sales team? Which leads do we throw out? Which leads do I nurture? And if I'm going to nurture them, what am I going to send them? Which blog article? Which white paper? Right? So first of all, which leads do I nurture? I need to look at my closed-loop analytics. Right? So I need to be able to look at all the leads I've generated over the last month, and I want to see where did they come from. And I want to see what % of them converted into a lead and what % of them converted into a customer. Right? And the biggest conversion rate I really got to watch here is my lead to customer ratio. That is an expensive ratio. Right? If I'm getting 100,000 leads from social media and closing 10 accounts, that's expensive, especially if I get 100,000 leads from Google and I close 100 accounts. That drives my cost per sale. That drives the entire profit margin for my business. So clearly, I have to rethink those social media leads, and they probably need a little bit of nurturing. Now I have some guidance on where I'm going to create those nurturing campaigns. I'm not just throwing darts in the dark. Okay? I can also look at it at a campaign level. So if you're running a big campaign, and you're going to generate a lot of traffic, I can look at just that campaign and break that down by where they're coming from and see where the leads are coming from and see where the customers are. Perhaps there are micro segments within that campaign that I want to nurture. Perhaps there are micro segments in that campaign that I got to sound the alarms for the sales team because they're such hot leads. Okay? And the other thing I want to do is, what type of content am I going to add to my lead nurturing campaign? What type of content has statistically proven to accelerate the sales cycle, to convince someone that our product is great? So if I wrote 50 blog articles in the first half of this year, which one of those blog articles convinced someone to be a customer at a more aggressive rate, right? If I closed 700 customers last year, what was common about the type of content that they read? If 20% of those people read this one particular blog article by my CEO, that's a really good blog article. Whatever is it about that blog article, it convinces people to buy. It convinces people to buy faster. So that's probably a good blog article to put into my lead nurturing campaign, right? Now I'm just not making stuff up. Now I'm not just building out segmentations and building out flows and haphazardly choosing what to send someone on day 1 and day 3 and day 5 of a campaign. I have statistical evidence of what causes someone to buy. Right. OK, now we are ready for market automation. Right? And when I think about market automation, I am now equipped with fresh leads. I am now equipped with good calls to actions, good content. I now understand which segments I want to go after. And now we'll just talk about market automation for a minute. Lots of times what people will do is they'll go through this complicated if-and approach. If they view their pricing page, but they're B2B and they don't go into a trial, then send them this. And if 3 days go by and they haven't clicked here, then send them this. And then they'll build a couple flows like that, maybe 3 to start. And then a month later, they won't be satisfied with the results. So they'll build 3 more. And then after a couple quarters, they'll end up with 15 of these. And they'll look at a lead and be like, where is this lead? I don't even know. It's in 3 different workflows, receiving all these different emails, and is a complete mess. So the way we want to think about market automation is think about the stage that a particular lead is in, okay? And keep it kind of simple in the beginning. You may have leads that are in sort of the evaluation stage. They're brand new to your site. They haven't visited many people. Then there's like maybe a couple ebooks that shows that they're starting to warm up to your concept. Maybe we move them to stage 2. And maybe there's some calls to actions that show that they're deep in the process. A salesperson is engaged with them, or they've requested a demo, or they're active in a free trial. And then there's customers, which should also be nurtured as well. And now we can create a whole bunch of rules to dictate which stage they're in, but I'm going to create content that's specific to each stage. So it's a little bit more of a fluid process between those stages, as opposed to these complicated workflows that are just going to become a maintenance nightmare over time. Cool. All right, so it's really about the right message at the right time to the right person through the right medium as well. And what I mean by medium is not just email. We may want to involve social if that's their preference. We may want to involve the salesperson. We may want to adapt the web page and the home page, depending on where they are and what context they're at. And that really embraces a very successful market automation program, right? So from a high level amongst the larger companies, I see this obsession with lead nurturing, and I see a lack of preparedness. And hopefully today I've been able to walk through some of those common challenges and equip you guys with a better venture down your inbound marketing journey. We have 7 minutes, I believe, for questions. Any questions, folks? Thanks. Go ahead.
Hi, I just had one question regarding your view that you're hearing from sales on whether you're housing the database in HubSpot or if you house it, let's say, in Salesforce.com, I mean the CRM or the marketing automation platform. Because I know within the company I'm at, sales feels they only want to work with Salesforce.com.
Yep.
And they're glad to have a marketing automation system.
Yep.
But they only want one dashboard. Yep. And then they also have some control or ownership. They want to know that the names that they're entering stay in Salesforce. Do you hear that from other companies? If so, how are you addressing it?
Yeah. OK, I just need to.
Or is that new?
Yeah, make sure I get it. So are we running the market automation through the CRM versus the marketing software? And are we housing the data in the sales database, like the CRM, like Salesforce.com, or are we housing the data in the marketing database?
It's more where's the data being housed?
Yes.
So that there's a control on the database.
OK. OK, the answer is both. They should mirror each other. So anything that happens in the marketing database should update the sales database, and anything that happens in the sales database should update the marketing database. So very common examples in there is obviously if I'm a salesperson, I'm calling on a person, I've left them 8 voicemails and haven't gotten to them yet, and yet they go on my website today, like right now, I kind of want to know about that, and I wouldn't mind dropping a call. And when we first started doing that, we were a little concerned about Big Brother attitudes, but I'll be honest with you, it's never come up. Usually it's like, oh, funny, I was on your site kind of looking at a question, maybe I'll just ask you. So as long as you approach it in the right way, and I think it has to do because we're such a big inbound shop where people trust us, it goes over well. The other example is a salesperson has success with a lead, converts it to an opportunity, converts it to a customer. Me as a marketer, I want to know that. I want to know where they came from and which channels are actually working. So the answer is the two need to stay in sync. Okay, thank you.
Awesome presentation.
Thanks, man.
Piggybacking off of that point, actually, I wanted to get your perspective on sales and marketing alignment, and more how do your sales reps utilize the content that you guys have and line that up with each individual lead, right? Because in reality, you've got a sales rep that probably has 100, 200 leads, and depending on where that lead is in the buying cycle, there's a piece of content for that person.
Right.
Do your sales reps know that, or what's the best strategy to bridge that communication gap?
Yeah, I'll give you. So we kind of push this to the extreme, and you won't get here. So I'll give you an intermediate answer as well. But you are correct. It is important for the salespeople to recognize where these guys came from, and there is one email, one voicemail that they could leave that's ideal given that stage. So we've built and automated a lot of that into Salesforce.com. It took a lot of hacking, but we have so much content that we can actually go through those cycles. I mean, I've got over 100 folks on the phone, so it's worth it with that level of efficiency. And we can actually run tests too. We can put 1 week this one and the next week the other one, and we really start to get a statistical representation of what kind of content's going to move the most and automatically suggest it. As an intermediate step, I think if you've got dozens of salespeople or whatever, it's just really providing maybe some basic content, basic ebooks, basic emails that can be used at maybe one of these 4 different life cycle stages. You may want to try it. That's definitely something you can do. But when we see low connect rates amongst our sales team, that's really the first place that we look. Is I can go back historically and look at the emails that they're sending. If they're sending the same email and not personalizing it, that's what yields that low connect rate.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi. I like your LinkedIn homepage.
Yes.
One thing I noticed that you have on your homepage is
The HubSpot company page?
your HubSpot,
Yep.
yes, company homepage. And one thing I noticed that you have on there is you post it, a lot of
Yes.
stuff like, we just have a webinar, come see our webinar,
Yes.
or there's this great new article, et cetera, et cetera. In my organization, we're business to business. The thought is that the LinkedIn homepage should only be for advertising career.
Okay.
And for people that are looking for jobs, and the thought is also that's the only reason why someone would go to your LinkedIn homepage. I don't agree. I like your model. What is the argument that I could use to actually convince some of the people that are in charge of the social media to actually start posting these types of activities and webinars and?
Are they posting to Twitter or other accounts?
Not really. Not really. There's a group discussion page that we have, and the thought is that it's better to get people to go to the group discussion page than it is to go to our homepage. I mean, why can't we do both? And I'm struggling with convincing some of the people that it is good to do both.
Yeah,
and
I'd
not
have to
just reserve the LinkedIn homepage for we're looking for a new marketing automation.
If you just convince them to run a test, you'll be right. It's just linked, especially being B2B. It's so fruitful with a B2B audience. I mean, when people come to LinkedIn, they have that mindset. Yes, they have the mindset of recruiting, but a lot of them have the mindset of learning about products, and they have that B2B professional insight. So if you can just get them to run a test, you'd be right. I'd have to understand a little bit more about your context, what the social media team is doing. I mean, if they are posting out anywhere, it's usually you're a click away from posting to LinkedIn as well, just to run that test. And we could probably get you some collateral that shows how LinkedIn is on the rise. We have a very tight partnership with LinkedIn, and yes, they've been very successful in disrupting the recruiting arena, but they are putting tremendous calories into disrupting the marketing arena as well and leveraging that database.
Sure.
So you're seeing an enormous rise in that type of activity. So it's mark@hubspot.com, M-A-R-K, and we'll try to get you some collateral to help with that.
That would be great.
Okay,
That would
great.
be great, yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. By the way, LinkedIn is, they are making really, really aggressive moves from a software standpoint on their company pages and the tools they're providing for you in building up the following as well as nurturing that following via LinkedIn with segmentation, et cetera. So that's some really cool stuff that's going to come down the pipe. Okay, good.
Yeah, hi, nice presentation.
Thank you.
Question about other businesses that have been successful in transition, and let me give you a hypothetical. Fortune 500 company
Yep.
is not drinking the inbound Kool-Aid
Yes.
yet.
Yes.
They're doing events.
Yes.
They're doing the worst of all worlds, buying lists.
Yep.
And now they got a bunch of bad data,
Yep.
and lo and behold, they're like, oh my God, none of our campaigns are effective.
I've never seen this before.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So what other big companies have you seen successfully make that transition from the extreme of outbound to, okay, we got to start integrating and moving more toward the inbound mechanism?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, like, unfortunately, with a lot of the names we get at, enterprise customers are really good at negotiating, and we can't use their brands in public. So I got to think about who I can use, and to be quite frank, honestly, a lot of them are part of their way on that journey. You know, that full journey is a tough one, and some of them have started to. Hopefully, I've shared some examples of some that maybe not at the Fortune 500 level, although close, but there are some that are starting to bang down those walls of moving into inbound. The biggest obstacle that they have to go through is just the content production and publication of that content. And I think just going back to creating that thought leadership committee is one piece. There's a whole other segment around dealing with legal, HR, security, and even sometimes the opinions of your CEO who's thinking about managing the public markets, et cetera, in terms of how to push that through. And they all can be tackled in different ways. And I think we just need to point to some success stories and the blogs that I shared with you, some of the big companies that are doing it. Okay.
Thanks, Mark. Great presentation.
Thanks.
I'm wondering why, in the beginning, you would not suggest a reactivation campaign for the existing leads, even though they're bad. If you can drive them back and
Yep.
regenerate them, they've
Yep.
already paid the money to get those leads in the first place,
Yeah.
and it seems like a sure win.
I
right
love
off the
it.
bat.
It's just not as sustainable and scalable, right? So if you do have that 50,000 leads database and it was developed over 10 years and it wasn't cleansed at all, completely agree with you. I don't know how many are still good, 5,000, 10,000?
Whatever, I mean,
Reactivation
it's a
campaign would be,
starter.
reactivation campaign would be fantastic. It's just not, I'd start there, right? It's just like, it's not going to change the game. And I think the other tactics of really creating fresh leads, creating content, being more personalized, that is going to, you'll be a hero, you know? So I agree. Reactivation campaign, good start to get a little bit of a boost, but I don't think sustainable and scalable.
Okay, great.
Okay, yep. The other comment I'll make there too, which a lot of folks don't recognize, and I've seen some companies really struggle with, in fact, one today that I talked with, is as you're starting to blast out in that reactivation campaign, if you're not careful, it's very, very easy to completely destroy your IP reputation with the email vendors, and that is a bad, bad thing when you start to get blacklisted and no emails are going through, including the personal emails that your sales reps are sending directly to your prospects. Like they start to wonder why that $1 million deal that was really hot all of a sudden isn't returning their emails. It's because they're not getting the emails. So, definitely do the reactivation campaign, but like be very, very careful about buying lists and sending emails to either stale or non-opted-in emails. Go ahead.
Hi, I have a question about sort of doing pilots versus tackling this problem wholesale. I'm part of a team responsible for marketing communications for a number of brands and products globally. And so you brought up one example on the screen, and I don't remember the company exactly, but I heard you mention that this was one of their business units.
Thermo Scientific.
Okay. In your experience, has it been more the case that the companies you've worked with have sort of started with one business unit or started with one brand as sort of a pilot, or have you had more experience with people jumping in wholesale and maybe doing a little bit on everything?
It's both, and I think it depends on who's bought in and who's not, because you never have 100% buy-in. I think the more buy-in you have at the top, the more likelihood you are able to get sort of a mass adoption. But it's more likely that you have mixed adoption and maybe some of the divisions are in and you've got an opportunity to get in there and create success. and you can alleviate the concerns around, is this really going to work for my buyer? You know, and is this really going to work in our environment? And once you can get in there and create a couple, you know, success stories with some of the divisions, all of a sudden everybody else starts to warm up to it. But yeah, you can get mass adoption from the top. Some folks have completely centralized marketing, and they don't have a decentralized model across divisions, and it's much easier to pull it off there. Okay.
Thanks.
Yep.
Hi, actually, if I could make a comment to that, I work for a franchisor, and we have 4 brands, and I moved all 4 brands into HubSpot at the same time, and
Great.
I was in charge of that.
What's the name of the company?
It's Service Brands. We have Molly Maid, Mr. Handyman,
Yeah, great.
Protect Painters. Hi, went out to dry
Awesome.
clean. That was freaking crazy. I did not have enough people to help, and we're still a little bit drowning. But what I will tell you is when you move a bunch of brands at the one time, you start to realize each brand is so unique and how HubSpot solves a different problem. And you are so, you know, from the holistic top view down, I would almost say it really does suck, but you get a much clearer picture of what your business is. My question is, you're talking about hacking and going crazy in Salesforce. Did you guys do that all internally, or did you have anybody help you do that? And if so, who?
Yeah. The company name was OpFocus. It was 5 years ago when we were like literally 5 people. So we just we couldn't hire a Salesforce admin. None of us had the skill set to do it. So they were locally, and they did a good job for us. I think it's OPFOCUS, the OCUS. The CEO is David Carnes, C-A-R-N-E-S. And today we have a whole Salesforce administration team, so we don't go external today. And you know, if you're a big company, you probably have Salesforce help, and if not, you should, because it does become a pretty important part of this process.
We're ready to do an audit and then try to integrate all of our workflows in, so thank you.
Cool.
My next question is, you talked a little bit about these enterprise clients and how they adopted into inbound marketing and they realize that they need content. Can you share with us a little bit on what some of their decisions are, or how many people they brought in to jump into the generating and publishing of the content, just to give us a baseline of how many people we may or may not need?
Sure. I think it's all over the place, and it just depends on your setup and how many thought leaders you have. The more the better, but even if you pull off like 5 or 10, that's enough. I mean, if you can pull together 5 or 10 of them, and let's say you have a goal of 1 blog article a week, which would be fantastic, and let's say you have 5 of them, that means they only have to have this 15-minute conversation once every 5 weeks. You know, so even small numbers like that is very effective. And if you can get that up to dozens of people, which I'm sure many of you can without a lot of effort, now you're talking about involvement from busy people once every few months, and you're putting out blog articles multiple times a week. Okay?
Perfect.
Sure.
Thank
and
you.
one comment, too, on your point along how hard it was for you to span across divisions and groups. It's hard for everybody. And just so folks know, like 99% of the time, we've gotten involved, I've gotten involved in that evangelism, even when you are a customer. I can't tell you how many times Mike Volpe and I have gotten in an airplane to fly out and meet a C-level team, to talk to them about these concepts, even months after someone's been a customer and been successful. So that invitation is open for you guys if you need our help to tell this story, to tell them how we run marketing and how we think about lead generation. We're always excited to do that. That is our time. I appreciate you guys coming out. Enjoy the rest of the show.